Poetry. Perfect poetry purposefully puts people's passions public. I believe in the power of poetry. Poetry is a set of condensed ideas that evoke strong emotions from the readers of the piece. I grew up in a poem. My life was poetry in motion. Each new step led me to a brand new horizon of sights and sounds, reflective of the natural world surrounding my fledgling soul. I became a poet by way of the beauty of God's wonderful creation around me. Hymns were the first poems that my young mind was introduced to. When the roll is called up yonder, I shall see Jesus in the meeting in the air. The Red Rat Hymnal was my first poetry anthology that I ever read. I grew to experience great joy in living through the wondrous words that were where we wanted them to be. Alliteration is my favorite literary device aside from an effort. Sorry. Psalms was the literary equivalent of the joy of poetry that I experienced through the musical poetry of the hymnals I sang. Psalms was the short poetry that inspired my creativity and allowed my soul to flourish at the same time. I entered middle school as the son of an English teacher with a desire to write and excel in my English classes. I began to create my own poetry due to an anthology project for one of my middle school classes. I thought it was much easier to craft my own poems with literary devices than to search for other people's work online. The first few works fostered my creative spirit in the literary arts. I started to develop a strong love of music at this age. I became enamored with a band named Relient K. Matt Thiessen, lead singer and songwriter, made some of the most intriguing and intellectual lyrics that I had ever heard in my life. I began to use their innovative frames of thought in much of my own writing. Poetry's power in my life began to grow as I discovered the joy of writing songs. I found so much elation in the cathartic process of tracing my problems on the page in a rhythmic way. As I grew in my writing ability throughout high school, the poetry that I created began to turn to more and more innovative poetic forms. Entering my college teaching class, I attempted to break all the rules of English conventions by creating an acrostic and image poem. This was a very rebellious action in my classically trained English mind. I thought that all literary pieces must adhere to stanzas and paragraphs, or those pieces lacked literary merits if they didn't contain those things. So throughout college, I continued my adventurous journey in experimental poetry writing. Some of my influences in this writing style at this time were E. E. Cummings and Cam Smith from my band Hotel Books. Poetry became the way for me to express me and my thoughts and issues through the healing power of the medium. Remembering the age-old saying that poetry is an overflow of powerful emotions, I was able to deal with many of the stressors in my life by crafting poems that captured many of the feelings I was experiencing at that time. I've just turned 24 and I still believe that poetry contains a freedom unrivaled by any other literary method. Poetry stirs the soul and brings solace to many who suffer and to many who flourish. This is why I believe in the power of poetry.